Hello everyone, this video is on creativity, channeling creativity, ideas, bringing beauty into the world, and where do ideas come from? And so let me just enter silence and see what comes up. Ideas are given to individuals in response to them being of service. So if an enthusiasm arises within oneself to be of service in the world, ideas will be given. It's the way that you communicate with an intelligence in nature that is very altruistic, that is very giving. It provides you with insights. And sometimes we think, oh, I came up with that idea, and then we pat ourselves on the back. But that's a misunderstanding because ideas are given to those people that wish to be of service. So if we look up to the sky and we ask, how can I be of service? Then we're bound to receive endless little ways that we can be of service, some really big, some will create manifestations in the relative world, such as companies or buildings or whatever it might be. Other times it might be just acts of kindness in the world or just showing up as ourselves. And just by showing up as who we are, we just enliven the whole world. The universe loves it when we're being ourselves. The universe loves it when we are our own unique creative expression. And so, wouldn't that be a great idea to realize how unique we are and how gifted we are, and to really just show up unapologetically as ourselves? And so, there's a theme there about stepping into being oneself, no matter what that is, no matter what people say about it, or whether you get positive or negative feedback. Whatever feedback you get, the universe loves it when you are showing up as it has designed you. And if you show up as you're designed, then you kind of light up and you are saying, I am of service. So as soon as you're being yourself, you light up and it's like you're a star. And then all of these little ideas can be received. Kind of if we imagine there's a board and it's a board game and it's called life. And in the board game of life, we are a round dot. And when we're ourselves, showing up as our authentic self, we light up on the board. And when we light up on the board, there's a signal that goes out to the cosmic intelligence and it starts to download things into your physiology, ideas, insights, enthusiasm. And then when we turn off the light, those ideas go to somebody else on the board. And so the whole game is, how can I be more myself? How can I show up and really trust in my talents, trust in my gifts, trust that inner knowing of what really, really lights me up? And so the people that are more authentically themselves go on that journey of self discovery and surrender. They do better in the board game. And so the universe is always scanning to see who's lit up. And then it'll go, okay, that person will get a job done. And it'll download an idea. And that person will just be like, oh, I think I'll write a book. Oh, another person will say, I'm going to start a company. Oh, another person will say, I think I want to start a tiny little business selling coffee, and it's an acid-free coffee because I have an upset stomach when I drink coffee and there's acid in the normal coffee, and then it goes to them. I mean, I'm just channeling here, but there's endless ways to be of service. There's endless people asking for things that they wish were in the relative world. And as soon as it's asked, it's given. So, depending on how many people in this moment in time want acid free coffee, will depend on how many people receive ideas for making acid free coffee. So, since I'm thinking about it, I'm now probably thinking other people are thinking about it, and there's going to be some companies popping up. And so the universal scan, oh, who's going to make the best acid free coffee? Oh, this person has some spare time. This person has worked in the beverage industry before, is very, good, entrepreneurial. Bang! Give them the idea. And the ideas don't come from you. So you really have to have such gratitude when you're given ideas, when you're given creative insights, because they're gifts. They're gifts from beyond, and they're good signs. They're signs that you're taking care of yourself because the universe often will supply people with ideas who are taking care of themselves, who have the energy to to make those ideas into a reality or have a desire to do so. And so if you're kind of lounging about or maybe going through an existential crisis, maybe you're changing directions, you did this and now you don't know what you want to do, the best thing is to just return back to who you are, beyond the thoughts, beyond the emotions, beyond what other people are telling you should do, beyond the fears, and just take a moment to meditate and set an intention to receive information and just ask, how can I be of service? And then just wait. And maybe it takes a week, maybe it takes an hour, maybe it takes 3 years, whatever the timeline, just be patient. And you're always of use anyway. Even when you're in between projects, you're useful. Nobody's less useful because they're not being creative. That's a misunderstanding. You're being really useful when you're in that holding space, waiting to receive ideas, because that's a very, very powerful place to be. And if a lot of people are waiting to receive ideas, then it's that waiting is in the collective and it's a charged waiting space. And so it's more of an invitation for that cosmic intelligence to come to earth and into humans. So we've got to move away from being individuals and move towards understanding that we're a collective. We're a collective human species on earth. And if many people ask, then there will be receiving, and maybe it'll go to one person or another, but we don't want to get caught up with who it goes to and getting jealous and saying, well, it went to that person and not me, and that person stole my idea, and that that that's a misunderstanding. You might have a group of 200 people and they all are waiting for creative insights. And then there's only one big idea that's given to one of those 200 people. But because there were 200 people wanting, it came through. And so that one person can't then say, well, it came to me because, I'm so special. It may not have come to them if the other 199 people weren't wanting. And so we all are being of service, regardless of whether an idea is received to us, through us. And also, things don't need to be smashed into the relative world. They don't need to always be made into a physical reality. Some people, they have an idea for something and they live the whole setup of the business, the accomplishments of the business, the outcome, just through an ideation process, and then it's done. And some people can just visualize and make it happen and learn the lessons from the visualization alone. It doesn't even need to come into a physical reality. Isn't that interesting? That you can live life in a creative space outside of the relative world and learn lessons from that without needing it to be physical, because some people, they live many lives in one life. And so the amount of effort it would take and time it would take for them to set up all of those business ideas or live all of that life, it just wouldn't happen. So they can just ideate, 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 visualize, visualize, visualize. Some people are designed that way and learn the lessons and on to the next. It's like mini lives. And so sometimes people say, oh, I don't like chatting to that person because they're always talking about ideas, but they never actually make them into a reality. And then they shame them. Ah, they talk, but they don't do. But maybe the talking is doing, it's just not a physical doing. And maybe they don't need to make it into a physical reality. Maybe they get everything that they need just from visualizing. And we're very caught up in physical things. Like, I made this chair and I designed this sari and I made it. And now I have a sari company. Well, somebody might just visualize a beautiful floral sari, some and amazing jewelry to go with it, and imagine setting up a sari company and get the benefit from that without actually going into the grind of doing it. And they might really enjoy visualizing it. And there's a beauty in that. And also, when we're making things real, the earth has to supply us with what we need to make it real. And so we don't want to necessarily deplete the earth of its resources. And so whenever we're creating something, what is going to have to give itself up for you to create that thing? How many people are going to have to work for you? How many resources are going to have to be tapped from the environment? Where is it going to come from? Is that ethical? And there's no point in making something if it destroys the earth. There has to be sustainability, because if you're creating something and what you're creating isn't sustainable, then we take on the energy of that, and what you build with that contains the energy. So you can build an incredible hotel, but if it's built on slave labor, or if it's using resources which are depleted in the environment, or people were exploited in making it and designing it and weren't paid the correct wages, then when people go to that hotel, they won't feel good. It might look good. It might be a 7-star or a 5-star hotel, and it might be on the surface very beautiful, but energetically, if you're sensitive, you'll notice. I just I didn't feel great when I was staying in that hotel. The energy was off. Um, this is a very, very, very real thing. When I travel around and when I worked in the film industry, I would stay in incredible places, and some of them I'm like, oh, this is off. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but this is off. And you can go into much simpler spaces, but the energy's great. And so you know, oh, this was built through happiness. This was built through sustainability. And there's a currency in the energy behind what you're building. And so when you're coming up with creative ideas, bear that in mind. It's not just bigger is better. Bigger can be worse. Bigger can still be wonderful, but you have to be ethical because it catches up with you. And people who make money quickly and trample people, they lose the money, or the money buys them things which is an energetic match to the way they got the money. And so then it can create a miserable life. And so you can have some wealthy people who have wonderful lives and are very ethical, and you can have wealthy people who have miserable lives and get depressed. And there's many reasons why. It's not just one thing, but it's interesting to note. And I do believe that there's going to be a wave of sustainability. There's going to be a wave of sensitivity to energy. There's going to be a wave of people coming up with creative solutions to problems, new ideas, new ways of building what we desire to have in the relative world, cooperative, ethical building. And I love it. In India, we have something called Vastu, and they build structures, buildings, temples in accordance with the laws of nature. So they look at the maths in nature and they build the building according to that. And it's a science and it's just amazing. And so when you step into those buildings, the building meditates for you. It's a limb of Ayurveda Vastu. And usually the buildings are east facing or north facing, and they have a certain windows and light coming in. And I think it's linked to the moon and the sun. And oh, it's just stunning. And I've had some amazing experiences meditating in Vastu buildings. My family in India and the outskirts of Bangalore have built a Vastu home. And I can't wait to visit that. There are some pop-up communities in America, and in Fairfield, Iowa, there is Maharishi Vastu Homes, a sustainable community there where they're experimenting with that. And I think they're even doing some scientific research. And that was such a creative idea. Wow, building homes that meditate for you? That's an amazing idea. And when I learned transcendental meditation, I went into a Vastu building to learn it and had just a massive experience. And I think that is partially due to the building because these buildings, they kind of attract a lot of non-physical. And, we don't really know fully what's going on there, but a lot of the temples in India are Vastu. And so how did people receive these ideas? Well, they were in a meditative state, they were in stillness, they were connected to the nature and to cosmos. Probably at the time they could communicate with the plants and the animals on subtle levels. And so if we really want to upgrade our consciousness, then it's a really amazing idea to learn how to communicate with non human intelligence, such as flowers, such as plants, such as trees, such as butterflies and hummingbirds, and there will be a wave of interspecies communication. And when that happens, the creative ideas that are going to come through are going to be incredible because we're just human monkeys and we're really distracted and caught up in our heads and a bit lost and disconnected. But flowers are not disconnected, and maybe our pets are not as disconnected. And so once we start to communicate with the dolphins, to communicate with the whales, they can give us ideas. This is where we're going. The first wave was the idea to meditate and do yoga so that we could return back to an intelligence beyond the mind and body and come up with things. Now there'll be a wave into species communication. Interspecies communication is a byproduct of a meditative state. And so I really, really pray for us to start thinking outside of the box, for us to be creative as a human species, to be caring and compassionate and ethical with what we create, and live in harmony with our environment.